Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of Gyaniki Tech Talks. Today, we have an interesting journey when we talk about the upcoming startups and also the ecosystem in the battery side of the vehicle. It's always a challenge to step out and do something on your own, something different, something indigenous, and something cutting edge, right? So when we hear about a telecom industry veteran with 25 years of experience bringing a technology solution, it is really an exciting element. And this is where we today have our guest, Mr. Vibhor Garg, and he'll be talking more about what Emuron is doing and what solutions Emuron is bringing to the fore. When we look at the overall ecosystem, there are still huge gaps in the battery management system and overall integrated solutions along with IoT. And this is one place where Emuron has chosen to concentrate. Everyone is still in a learning mode, but obviously there are people who have a technology way forward, and we believe that Emuron also has a very strong technology foundation as they are working on it. So, with this introduction, I welcome today Mr. Vibhor Garg for this Tech Talks event. Good morning and welcome, Vibhor.
Good morning, Shikhar. It's really honor for me to call in this platform, which I have keep on listening the experts into this platform and able to get the field reality because I'm more believer of hands-on people, rather than going on a management perspective. So I found that you are giving a real gist of the problems as well as the solutions. And this is a really interesting thing because when you work in a unknown areas like EV or AI or some next gen technologies, you don't have very wide case studies with you to understand that where is the gap, how to fill the gap, who are the people who can fill the gap. So it's about community, who make the foundation and evolve the whole process. And your contribution is fantastic, and I believe, and thanks to my colleagues and community who have joined this platform and listening to some of the views on it.
Okay. Once again, good morning, Vibhor, and very good morning to everybody who's attending today. A very warm welcome from Gyaniki team for Tech Talks 13. If you don't mind, I guess we can pretty much roll into questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so similar to what Shekhar mentioned, right? Just to to add to that, it is quite difficult to operate in a space which is still very much developing, and especially in an ecosystem like ours where uh, new things tend to take time when it comes to people adopting them. So from that perspective, what are your thoughts on the performance of the EV sector in general so far? Any things that you especially noticed or have dealt with as a startup, and especially in a space which is again um, very hotly contested. So what are your thoughts on the performance so far and challenges in general?
See, overall EV industry, if you categorize, there are two parts. One are big brothers, and others are like you can say people who have migrated from their existing business and try to evolve into the EV setup. If you talk about big brothers, Maruti, Hyundai, Tata, Mahindra, I should say their space is quite, uh, evolving, but no doubt they are more on experimentation, R&D phase, as well as they want to be very clear that vehicle what they launch should be very stable and should be, global benchmarking will follow. And they have got a very well-defined processes and system with them. So definitely they will come in a big way. Now coming to the second tier 2 and tier 3 companies, which are focusing on, because they are worried about their existing revenues also, as well as developing the technologies. So I found that people are very, coming up with a lot of zeal and more, and people are quite optimistic that this industry will should grow. And as per the industry standards, like they are predicting that it should grow around 30% to 40% of CGR. And if they grow with this rate, I believe there will be enough scope for everyone to contribute. Now, the if you see that, mm, there are two part into it again, people who are developing the indigenized technologies and people who are just trading and assembling the things. So in first part, it's more about, if you go by the first methodology, then again you are dependent, and everyone knows that when the market is quite big, so it will going to lead into an cost gain also, because presently the EV is fragmented in multiple regions, and this fragmentation will going to be, maybe merged later on into 4, 5, 7, 10 players, as what the telecom has seen, as what the e-commerce have seen, as what the, other industry has seen. So EV will not be so different from that, maybe after 10, 10, 15 years. So I believe, if we try to learn from earlier mistakes, Indian business people should think that at least they should start uh, filling this gap by putting some indigenization into the component. If, for example, if you're talking about battery side, because we are more focused on battery side, not on motion side. So if you, in the battery side, 4 to 5 components are there. And if you think that everything I will trade and then assemble it and send to the market, then I believe they are thinking in short term, because this EV is not about making vehicle, it's about experiences. You know, EV is about experience, and the benchmarking has been already set by the Tesla, and they know that it's not about, it's a combination of multiple platforms. It's a combination of electrical, mechanical, electronics, and software. So if they feel that they can only manage the electrical part and they can deliver best experience to the customer, I think that will be little challenging for them, because user want experience nowadays. They want to operate the car by mobile app. They want to feel the robustness of the product by multiple features. And that's how you have seen that how the MG and even Kia has revamped the IC market. So if they think that IC user experience is not going to contribute, that is not enough. And once they feel that EV is all about user experience, not only sitting in a car and traveling to a destination, that will not work. So they need to change a little mindset and keep on upgrading the indigenization content into it, so the feature rich will become. That's what I feel the one of the thing has to be done in this sector.
Makes sense. I completely agree with you. It's not a simple case of A to B transportation anymore. People are very, very tech savvy, and especially in our market, features are a big sell. And I think my next question sort of ties into that, right? IoT solutions. Now, that's something that's a major, again, developing area, but something that should develop very quickly again, because like we see pretty much a lot of things, from currencies to even how people do basic things these days has become digital, and Indian consumers have taken very, very, like, very, very well to that. So, from an IoT solution perspective, what Emiron offers, right? In the three key areas: fleet management, OEM, from an OEM perspective, and from an end user perspective. Can you highlight a few key features that would be fantastic, as far as they're from a perspective that they're curated just for the Indian market? We know IoT and telematics tends to be a value add no matter which area you look at. But if from an Indian perspective, how do these three areas? What are some of the key features that it would help solve, or features that would help solve existing issues rather?
Okay, thanks, Harsh. It's a very important question. Basically, if you see that the major objective of the IoT is to gather the data, and if you have got a very solid database with you, you can debate, you can collaborate, and you can remove your challenges with a scientific way. Because, for example, if fleet management fleet company buy a batteries from the X company, and they put their specs in writing that, okay, my battery gives a charging and discharging, for example, 4,000 charging and discharging life cycle of the battery. So how to prove that? Because you can't change the behavior of the drivers, you can't change the road quality, you can't change the interfaces issues like motion versus battery combinations, because again it's a evolving industry. So now how to quantify the plus and minus, if and buts, pros and cons, what you purchased, how you make the product. So we understand that this is a major gap. If the fleet people buy a battery from 4 people, how to differentiate that which battery is bringing is the right battery, which is giving a more energy to motion ratio, which is most cost effective. So he need data points, and he need data points while the batteries is consumed rather than a battery sitting idle. So what the earlier telematics people used to do is they only were giving the location as and only the speed of the vehicle, and that is, I think, a minimum requirement, and this is not a requirement from the design perspective or to see that my investment is in right direction. It is just to nominate that my assets are basically safe. Now, when we go deep dive into it, we found that BMS is the heart of the battery. And we found that BMS is a major source of data he is collecting from the batteries. Now, BMS has got all kind of stuff like safety perspective, like operational perspective, like chemical perspective, and like the behavior of the driver, how he's driving the vehicle. So it's a hell lot of data is carrying with the BMS. So we found that why not to monetize this data, and here we find the gap. So we design IoT, fully designed from that perspective, and then we integrate with the BMS, and we pick the data directly from the BMS, not from any of the devices. So once we try to send this data to the cloud and do the analytical part, the real value comes to the fleet management team and to the OEMs. Uh, OEM knows that my out of this number of cells, which cell is faulty, why this cell is faulty, is it like which from where I bought this cell, whom to catch, what is the RCA behind it, what is the root cause analysis. So he can question himself. And similarly, the fleet person can question, is the driver is in mistakes? Is my charger is in mistake? Is my, the person who is managing the operation is in mistake? So these data points give a quantifiable and a very in whole ecosystem, the scientific way to solve the problems. So that's, we are trying to fill this gap, and everybody's interested to get this data. You talk about OEMs, you talk about fleet management people, you talk about user, because user is also interested how far I can go from this battery, and is my battery safe? I am running a safe battery or not, because temperature rises, he knows that my temperature is rising. So I think you talk about anything from asset stability, safety, reliability, operational perspective, ROI, TOC cost, everybody is benefited.
Absolutely. Yeah, the battery pack performance, and also so far what we've seen is a lot of new startups that have assembled from parts coming from countries where they may not have complete control over the how the battery pack is going to behave, right? To be able to know the real-time data can definitely be a major difference between who ends up actually providing a quality product. And I think my next question is sort of in that vein. So there are already a lot of vehicles on the road in the EV space, especially in the two-wheeler, three-wheeler space. Not all of them come with IoT solutions. Um, so from a retrofit perspective, right? I know that Emiron is providing IoT solutions not just in the BMS end but also at the vehicle end. My engineering estimate would say that the vehicle side retrofit may not be such a big challenge, but when it comes to the BMS, with existing vehicles that are already on the road, is retrofit a possibility, or and if so, what are some of the constraints?
Uh, yeah, because see, regarding the motion and also, we are targeting the heart of the system, and the heart of the system is ECU, you know. So we are getting, see, the fleet management people, what they want that if my asset is not safe, I should immobilize from the app. I should, stop the vehicle there itself. If my safety is thresholds are reached, I should stop the vehicle. And so these challenges, when we see that we are not doing anything regarding the powertrain end. So we have requested to the vehicle people that can you share those data with us at why, if we can integrate the ECU with our IoT, that will be again, you can get a big factor, big data from the ECU end also. So that's a challenging part because ECU is, people don't share the protocols. They don't want to share it due to their multiple reasons. So that challenges we are facing, but I hope that as an it's a new industry, so people will come up with these solution also. So maybe from as an from the vehicle perspective, we can do a lot of immobilization from the BMS also. So it depends upon, from the retrofitting perspective, you call about, there are two way. One is that he's having the lead acid battery. So in the case of lead acid battery, we are not much focused because that is, I know, is a gone area. So in the lithium, if the pack is not able to accommodate my device because it is made of sheet, metal sheet, because we need some ABS or some plastic to penetrate the GPS signal. So if that is not possible, then we try to find a solution with some external antennas rather than putting it. Now, I want that this external antenna should be so miniature in nature so that it doesn't hamper when we able to charge the batteries. So second issue we face is that BMS is not giving a right data because these BMS are all maximum from the China side. So most of the data is not coming from the BMS. Third, we found is that the BMS doesn't have a right interfaces, how to get the data. So we have evolved ourselves, and now we know that we have interface with our IoT with more than 20, 25, more than that batteries. So we understand now that how the BMS behave, what kind of data it now give, and how many manufacturers are there in China, what data they can play. So at least some insight is coming. Hopefully, I should say that this answer is fully, known to us. But yes, maybe in a 6 month or 8 month time, we can fully aware about that. What are the more challenges into it? As in today, we can say that most of the major and critical challenges has been removed from our end. With all the you talk about OEMs, fleet management people, or maybe some people. But still, I still lot to go into it.
You bring up an interesting point actually about the fact that there might be some signal issues when it comes to pack that is made of out of sheet metal instead of ABS, instead of plastic basically. And as we are seeing more and more, at least in the performance area, or packs that are crossing 4 kilowatt hour tend to favor the sheet metal side of things. Is it really a big challenge to work with? I know you mentioned the antenna part and having installing an antenna on the exterior of it. But does that prove to be a huge challenge when it comes to the data side of things or the efficacy of it when you're not able to penetrate the pack?
See, actually, we have done an offline mode also. For example, if data is not able to transmit to the cloud on real-time basis due to signal strength issue, or maybe the vehicle is in the basement, or maybe some due to the limitation of the coverage. So in that case, we have given a flash memory, so data gets stored into it, and then it can push directly to the cloud once it comes in the region. So this is offline mode. But again, to come to a right thing, like definitely. We have developed this IoT presently on 2G network, but due to the cost factor, we are ready with the 4G also. But once the cost permit, we can go for the 4G also. And once we go for the 4G, then a lot of coverage issue will solve. But yes, now people are realizing, just coming from the OEM perspective, now they are realizing that IoT is a need because all the fleet management people are, they get financed by some financial institute and they want data. They will not going to fund you unless the data comes to you. So now they are changing their old patterns, which they used to design their casing part, their their space reserved for the IoT inside the battery because that was not reserved earlier. and from the mounting perspective, from the vibration perspective. So they are coming up with. We are also suggesting them how to reduce the cost of the IoT. If we are able to get some voltage directly from the BMS, we can save a lot of cost into it. So all those combinations coming, but I think people are very interested to do it, and especially those battery manufacturers which are making good batteries and supplying in good numbers. They are now start segregating their mounting mechanism and mechanical perspective from the IoT perspective. They are quite interested also, and there is a demand also now in the market.
Yeah, I can't deny that at all. Actually, I do know that for a fact that two-wheelers are, the two-wheeler space is really heating up when it comes to this. There's a lot of IoT based features that are coming in. Geofencing and stuff is all pretty much become old now. There's so much more coming in, and startups, everyone wants to stand out, and this is the only way I guess you can do that. Um, uh, my follow up is something that I guess doesn't get talked about too much, at least in the news media, and that is to do with the fact that one, we all know, we've heard recent reports of applications that people use on their phone, and privacy issues from a private, like a privacy from a data perspective of the users. And secondly, the safety. I'm not sure if you've heard, but a couple of years back there were 3 or 4 cases of friendly hackers, hacking into systems of vehicles of established OEMs, just as a showcase that, hey, we can take over your vehicle from your infotainment system. So with all of these concerns, one is the data, the privacy of the user, and the second is the safety concerns when it comes to having a cloud-based platform, right? When data is going to a cloud. Now, from that perspective, how well is the Kinetic X backend, like the software side of things, coping up? Is there something unique that you are doing there, or something that guarantees that there is no way to be able to um, make misuse data, basically?
It's a good question. Basically, as an Amron, we are have a very stringent policy on this. We are only hosting our IoT solution on tier one companies only. We don't host in tier two and tier three at all due to even the cost is less in that case. We don't do it at all. Number one. Number two, we do a encryption into our data also. So encryption is designed in a such a way that it is matched with multiple parameters. It may be IDs, it may be network unique IDs, and then there is a once the data reach to the server, we keep on doing analytical part into it, that who is accessing the data, is a valid user or not, is an invalid user or not. So all those filtration activity keep going on the server level itself. And I hope that we keep even exchanging the information with the tier one cloud players also. So it's an ongoing process, I believe, because we this is also a responsibility from the operator end, because we are throwing the data in the air. So once we are throwing the data in the air, then it's going into then operators portfolio too. So breach of content can happen at multiple things, at IoT and also at on air also, at server level also, and or it may be at the user perspective also. When the user is downloading the information, then also the hacking can happen from his computer. So now again, this is a complete flow of the data. So this whole flow of the data need to be taken care. And I hope that people are quite sensitive, because fleet management people are concerned about their user database as well as the quality of the assets what they are buying. And OEM is also quite optimistic to keep the information in a very reserved way, because he's worried about his technology secrets to be get into the market. So I think it's an ecosystem which need to be built out around it, and all are taking care about it.
Right. Um, Having said that, though, having powertrain data and OEM analyzing that definitely makes sense. They want to make sure that their products are performing well. But from a, let's say, information which pertains to the driving behavior, or how the driver is using it, or what sort of basically your geolocation, geofencing. from that perspective, do you believe, I personally don't know if there is any sort of user agreement or some sort of a prior intimation that the owner signs off on this. I think right now this is a very blank space. um, and do you feel it would be required for or it would make sense for the user to be notified, the user to have a sign off before data is collected on the cloud?
See, there are two parts. One is the B2B. We are selling our IoT to the basically OEMs and the fleet management team. So they are all B2B. So we can do only B2B acknowledgement and the authenticity. But from B2C, once the data goes, once the vehicle is installed in a battery and it's sold to a user, then in that case, they have to definitely take care about that, the all those behavior aspects and the driver authentication, their credentials and everything. But again, it's an evolving process. Definitely, once you know these things will going to have threatening things, definitely some more action will be taken care. It may be as hardware and encryptions can be done, or maybe a software and encryption can be done. So all those steps will evolve. I think things will definitely evolve into it once it get more competitive, and cost pressure will come and more value feature will come. So these things should come. It's very similar that how you buy an iPhone and versus other phones. So when you
Yes.
buy an iPhone, you pay for it, and you pay for your security, you pay for your reliabilities, and you pay for everything. And when you buy an Android phone, it's a open source platform. So once you made the technology in open source, it's always a prone for hacking. It's prone for exposure. It's prone for
Yes.
threat. So these open source has got their own benefits, that it's cheap, it's easy to implement. You have a wide community to skill set is high in that case. So, but the negative part is that definitely it's prone for hacking also. So it's a balancing you have to take care of, like cost versus trade off. It's a trade off of cost versus features versus whole ecosystem which is available with you.
I think, yeah,
You
I
can
think I
design
think
a
you
system
put it
which is
very
of
well.
military grade, but you have to know that if you design a system of a military grade, then you have to pay for it.
You have to pay for it. No, that, I think you sum it up very well. At the end of the day, that's all it comes down to. Okay, moving on a little bit. So, we've covered IoT quite well. Moving to the smart BMS. Again, it's something that we are seeing that's sort of upcoming. You're soon to be launching a 3 and 4S version, and you're looking at 15 and 16S versions as well. Can you talk a little bit about the smart BMS, or is it sort of too soon?
Just I will brief out because still it's in R&D. So what we realized while integrating the BMS with IoT was that what BMS we are getting from neighboring countries, I don't seem it's a best fit for it. Uh, you know, uh, because you are buying a pure electronics with the assumption that it will going to save the battery, nothing else. You trust the supplier only because you don't have any scientific way to prove that this is protecting my battery. You just trust with the data what they supply you, or their case studies which is available in their countries. But when we integrate and found that there is a lot of gaps. They don't supply data, they don't supply commands. You can integrate with your to fetch the data from the BMS, or the quality of data is irregular. So we found that a lot of challenges, and we understand that this can also be built out. We work out within our team and we found, no, why not to build out this too. So that's where the initial stage started, and we have a prototype is been under progress. Hopefully by June or July, and we should launch this in a very big way. And secondly, I'm also designing in a way that the cost shouldn't come into the because you can design any product, but it should be cost to fit market. Market should accept that cost also. So with that, keeping in mind our China market, what cost they are getting, we are very confident we will penetrate very well in the market.
Fantastic. And I think you're right. You really make a good point that buying hardware at a maybe a pack level still may be, we sort of are forced to do it right now because there is no local cell availability. But when we look at things like BMS controllers, it's must like it's a must that it's developed indigenously and at a company level as well, because there's a lot of control that goes into it. Speaking of, another very exciting area that you guys are involved in is swappable, swapping stations. But before we get there, one more question on the BMS. Um,
Yeah.
Most three-wheelers and two-wheelers, the I think that is really the space where at least the 3S, 4S is going to be targeted towards, right? Um, there is there a big challenge, because a lot of these will tend to go for swappable packs, or in some case they will go for segregated packs, where the system voltage is just broken down into a multiple so that it's easier to pick out a pack from the vehicle for charging. Or in some cases it's just a swappable pack. You want more range, you add a third one. You don't want it, you use just two of the batteries. So in these cases, how much more challenging does it get from a BMS perspective? Because we know for a fact that in a swappable pack, each pack is going to need to require its own BMS, right? Uh, Whether that that's a slave BMS, but still it's going to require its own BMS. So how does that? How challenging do you think is that? Are you targeting companies with swappable packs, or is that something still in the works?
I think I fairly understand this question, but what I can say is that BMS is the heart of the battery. You can't ignore it. So BMS, and when I'm interacting with the OEMs, they feel that the passive BMS is not giving the required uh, uh, efficiency. Why I'm saying efficiency is that because you are putting just for sake of putting it. Do you understand that? Okay, you have got some data which has been proven, and you test in your labs also, and you're putting it. But once you put into the systems, you need a very good data out of it. And now they realize that initially maybe they were in a, once we fetch the data, give demo to them, and then we give a benefit of the IoTs, they realize, yeah, oh, that is missing, why not to do it? Then they says, okay, yeah, let's collaborate and do some trials. Then we do a trials with them. I believe the or either they are putting a BMS from X company. Now the, for example, that X company doesn't have a stock, then they buy from the Y company. And if the Y company says, okay, I can't do it, then they buy from the Z company. So X, Y, Z keep on moving based on the demand and supply gaps. So there the quality of the BMS also suffer. Now they don't have a full control on the BMS, so they keep on they have to just be on the fate of the suppliers. So I found that it's quite emotionally also deteriorating for a businessman. You keep spending your time in inefficiencies rather than efficiencies. So I believe we will fill this gap.
Makes sense. I think I may not have put my question clearly. Maybe I'll try this a different way. Is Emuron involved in the process of the calibration of the BMS itself with the end user, or is it more of a hardware level support, and then the calibration side of things is more on at the OEM end, or the client end?
See, we are making an intelligent BMS. So it has
Hmm.
got balancing features, it has got thermal management features, and it has got monitoring features. So
Right.
I believe calibration perspective, what I can say is that definitely some metrics may require, but I am not in a position to tell presently. But
Okay.
definitely our focus is that we want to make it intelligent a way that you fit and forget. So that is our objective. So that's we are taking a time to launch it, because we want to first do a prototyping testing real on the field. Our strategy to launch a product is not to launch in a lab and then commercially declare it. We do a prototyping with 2 to 3 partners, solve the problems, and then we come into the market. So maybe these questions can be answered once we start the prototyping.
Absolutely. No, makes sense. Okay. I think we are very close to seeing if the audience has some and the smart battery swapping system, right? what is the overall service or what uh, that Environ is providing, right? And secondly, from the ones that are existing in the market, for example, Sun Mobility, it's pretty big name right now.
Yeah.
How does it compete with the
See, we always work for the USPs. We don't want to make a product only for indigenized purpose. That is definitely one of the big, objective, but that is not the only objective. When we evolve our product based on the market feedbacks, then I go to the market and find out what is stopping you to put this battery swapping station. So because the user for this particular product will be mostly fleet management teams, they says the problem is that they only charge their own batteries. They don't charge other batteries. That is the biggest problem. For example, if I buy a Sun Mobility charger, then they will going to charge only Sun Mobility batteries. Now, for a fleet management people, it become very disgusting, that I can only buy batteries from one partners, and that makes business unviable or sometime unprofitable or maybe less profitable. Second is that he's worried, because after all, the product has to be handled by the unskilled or semi-skilled team also. So charging and discharging of the battery is handled by the semi-skilled manpower. So they are worried, is he able to put a right charger into it, or whether the rating of the charger match with the batteries, or whether the battery rating he is able to read properly, or the sticker sometimes get misbehaved in the batteries, or it's not visible. So all those challenges come because presently the volume of the battery is quite less. Once it becomes scalable to the fleet management to handle 1,000 batteries, 2,000 or 10,000 batteries, you imagine the kind of problem they will face to handle the charging portfolio of the batteries. So we discussed very intensively and in details with the battery OEMs as well as fleet management people, and they found that this problem need to be addressed. So that's how we come into picture. So what BSS we have made is independent of batteries. You can charge any kind of batteries. You can have, it's automatically detect which kind of battery parameters are there. So it will keep charging based on the, battery requirement, because our electrical work which we have fit in into is a dynamic in nature. So our rectifiers are dynamic. They can pump the energy based on the requirement of the battery. They will not pump on the fixed power basis. Once normally the people, what they do is that once their battery come into their yard, they plug the fixed charger into it and they charge it. And it's a really a daunting task for a battery OEMs to satisfy that you are not charging properly, you are not charging with proper setup, or you are not charging with a proper capacity. So those questions keep coming between OEM supplier and the fleet management people. So we want to resolve this permanently. So that's how the key USPs is that you can charge any batteries. The profile will be decided by the BSS itself. It will be fully operational. You want semi-automatic BSS. You want a fully automatic BSS, just fully operational from the mobile app itself. You want an unmanned BSS. You want manned BSS. You want a four box BSS, 4 channel base. You want a 11 channel base. You want a 10 channel base. You decide your configuration, and I will give you according to you. So that's our major USPs.
Makes sense. Any applications or any examples of these already being set up, or is also the BSS is also something that is still in the works, or have you already
BSS,
had success? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, BSS, we have done a prototyping. Now, lab prototyping is completed. Now we are tying up with one OEM fleet management team person, and this will be there for another 2 months. We will fully test practically from driver aspects, from the semi-skilled labor perspective, from the inventory perspective, from the fleet management perspective, from the OEM perspective, and we are in touch with more than 8 to 10 big uh, fleet management team who are interested and very eagerly waiting for our product because it's really solve the problems. So I believe that the field prototyping should start, field trial should start from the Feb end. And we once the field trial is over, we will commercially launch it by maybe March end or mid of April.
Makes sense. Okay, let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Okay. Everyone, please feel free to post your questions or unmute and ask. Okay, I see one. Have you been working with any college, universities, incubation centers? Are you involved with any of these when it comes to developing a product or for a POC perspective?
No, we keep touching. We have a basically it's we are in touch with IIT Delhi, but frankly speaking, we our internal people as well as some other founder members are quite competent to do it because they have an electrical background there also. So, but it's a evolving process. For example, for designing a rectifier, we have discussed with few of the college also, but I shouldn't say that it's only on case to case basis. There is no specific contract or obligation to design it from outside.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Let's see.
Any questions from the audience? If anyone has a question, they can unmute and ask.
I think you put forth 3, 4 areas. One is BSS, second is IoT. I think this much I could understand. But what is this BSS?
This is
Hello?
battery swapping station.
Battery swapping.
Swapping station.
And what about IoT? It is the integration of BMS and some unities there.
Yeah, basically IoT can fit into base station also because IoT is an transmission mode. It's a transmission media to send the data to the cloud. So if you want to send the data from the BMS, then you put the IoT inside the battery pack and send the data of BMS to the cloud. And if you want to send the data of rectifiers of the other things, then you put the IoT inside the BSS. So IoT is making the static device into a smart device.
Can't we make it as a part of BMS? Why we need add on to or bolt on to BMS such a device?
So you can make a single card also. You can make an integrated card with the BMS and IoT both. But the only thing is that normally the trend is that the cost factor. Market normally believes that if someone don't need IoT initially, so he will not put that price for it. Second is that definitely there is always challenge of noise. Once you design a transmission device with a power device, so there is always a noise challenge. So unnecessary, it's about cost metrics. But from technical perspective, you can design integrated card. There is no limitation on that.
And you are saying like you can put your IoT system to any BMS from any part of world, whatever BMS.
Yeah, we are integrating our IoT device with the BMS, which has been supplied by the third parties.
Yeah. So third party
they
can
should be
be
communicable.
Any corner,
Yeah,
any corner from world.
Sorry.
From any corner of world, whatever BMS I'll be getting, you can integrate it with the system.
Yeah. But only thing is that device should communicate, and the supplier of BMS should share you the commands because we have to integrate the command structure in our firmware. So normally all the suppliers share it, but I will say that you should put in your purchase order also that if you want to buy a BMS from outside, then they should share those command in near future.
Anything like cost factor, how much it costs? Like I suppose I'm
See,
going for it.
cost perspective, IoT device and recurring cost depends, from a volume perspective also. But we have kept the cost at very low end, and if you compare it with any of the, China or anything, it will be very much comparatively. You will not feel the burden of it. That is my assurance. Otherwise, I will not design any product. If I can't compete with China, I will not design the product.
Certainly that is the case because China is going such a big way and since long. Really, it's appreciable. Like you are assuring people like we are competitive with China. It is very difficult.
Yeah, I understand because we try to keep our costs very low, and our design cost is quite optimized. So it depends upon n number of factors, but the bold line is that we should be near to China.
Are you still dealing with OEMs and fleet operators only, or individuals also you are supplying?
See, we are dealing with the OEMs and fleet management people. Now the vehicle manufacturing people have start approaching us to monitor the data from the ECU also. So we are working on the some hardware need to be upgraded in the IoT. So we are working on that front also. I believe maybe in 2 to 3 months we should have one vehicle which should be integrated with the ECU. So we have a technology. Only thing is, it's depend upon the interest of the OEM and the supplier, how forward path they think. So I believe once they start getting the data of the ECU also, then the value creation will be much higher. The complete vehicle is monitored now. You get the data from the motions and also you get a data from the fuel end also. So both data can really create a lot of analysis and decision making process.
Do you have solutions? Do you have solutions for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, commercial vehicle, and special purpose vehicle?
See, four-wheeler we have not touched now because I think that is a big brother field. So I hope that definitely once the market evolve, they will come. We will collaborate with them. But initially, we have not touched that market, so I'm not able to comment more on that. How they operate, what kind of modus operandi they will going to operate. So presently, we want to first finish this two and three-wheeler side. But as in product, there is no limitations. We can integrate with the four-wheeler also.
What do you mean by fleet? What kind of fleet you are targeting at? Like three-wheeler fleet?
Yeah, three-wheeler fleet management team, no? Because they put hub locations where they normally lease their batteries to the this drivers.
Lease mean you mean
Yeah.
to say swap?
Sorry,
Lease means swap.
sir, voice थोड़ा audible नहीं हो रहा.
Lease means swap. What?
Yeah. Normally, the trend is that people are doing is that they are buying the vehicle and not buying the batteries. So they just buy a vehicle and battery they lease it from the service provider. So these service provider fit the IoT inside it and then they give it to the different buyers.
Okay. So, yeah, Ganesh sir, I think we are running out of time. So, yeah, but we will share the details of Vibhor and you can reach out to him if you have any specific questions.
Absolutely. And okay, I think we'll tie off the questions here, Vibhor. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time today. We've so far covered a lot of the hardware areas of battery packs, motors, a lot of the tech. IoT is something that is untouched and was untouched. I'm sorry, and it's definitely a space that has a lot of development coming and as well as a lot of challenges as well. So I think it's a great thing, the initiative that you have gotten into this space. You seem like you really know your stuff, and we wish you all the very best. And again, thank you very much for taking the time to be on Tech Talks. I hope that we can stay connected. If you have any parting words for the audience, please go ahead.
Thanks, Ars and Shikhar. It's a really a big platform you have built out, and I'm thankful for the whole community who has joined and taken their precious time for listening whatever information I've shared with them. And I think everyone should have a little part of their mind that we should indigenize our products, because that's how the industry will grow and more tech people will join, and they will groom the industry. So once we start pushing and demanding from the market will itself evolve. So I request that all the OEM, fleet management team, financial institutes, and the whole community to demand that I need indigenized products. So once they demand it, people will come. Thanks very much for your invitation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. And we will see you again next Saturday. Until then, goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Vibhor.
Thanks.